Hey guys, so as you see, my background's a little bit different. I'm not where I normally live right now. That's why I don't have my headset, and that's why the video may sound a little weird. But I definitely think it's, a good listen to, because I make, really valid points. Maybe, put this behind a game you're playing or something else you're doing to just listen to the audio. Obviously, looking at my sexy face isn't the whole point of the video. So the video is entitled something like, why should medics be more appreciated in TF2, right? And so the video is going to be split up into three different parts. But before I say that, I just want to say that this is mainly for the Sixes environment. I don't have too much experience with Highlander or Pub Medic, but it could definitely apply to those. I just don't want to say that it would help in those environments because I don't actually know if it would. But this video is going to be split up into three different parts. The first part is going to be, why do I think the medic class, a supportive role in the game, is conceptually different than any other fragging class they might play while playing competitively. So why is that? Well, in any game like CS:GO or Dota 2 or really any game at all that's multiplayer, you're gonna have maybe a class that supports the other class, and they have to think differently about how to even start to play the game versus a fragging class. And I'll explain that more in depth in that part. The second part is going to be describing how medics really train to get better at the game. There's only a couple things they can do, right? They don't have as many options as fraggers have. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And the third part of the video, of course the title is why should you be more appreciative? In the third part of the video, I'm going to give you, maybe examples of how while you're in game or after the game when you're looking at stats, how you can actually say, hey, medic, you did a really good job. And instead of just saying that, you can actually point it out so that they can realize, hey, I have a strength in this, maybe, I'm not as good in those, but, at least somebody said, hey, I did a good job. And, because medics really appreciate that stuff. Nobody actually says, hey, great game, stuff like that. It's really reserved for all the fragging classes for when they go big. And I think, medics should be a little bit more appreciated, and I'll talk about it, in the next parts of the video. So, thanks for watching if you're actually going to watch it, because it means a lot when people actually go through and watch the entire video. So for this first part of the video, I'm going to talk about why I think it's important to at least understand that the medic and the fragging classes are conceptually different about how you approach the game. So what do they have in common when they're thinking about what to do, maybe in a mid-fight? Well, they both have to think about, what is the team's strategy that they set out? What are the enemy's positions so you can take advantage of it? And where should you position so that you don't die, right? Those are common themes between all classes. Now, what do the fraggers think about versus what the medics should be thinking about? Well, the fraggers are going to be thinking, who should I be prioritizing with my damage? Should I be prioritizing just one person or multiple people? As well as where should I position myself so that I am with the medic for part of the time so I can get healed, as well as not with the medic so that I can pressure and push somewhere, right? Because that's really important. That's how you gain control of areas. So now what does the medic think about? Well, the medic is going to think about where can I position myself so that I can be ready to heal this person, or this person, or I'm positioned perfectly so that I can heal all of them when they need heals. And of course, when do I use Uber? Who do I heal first? How long do I heal these people? And when do I tell people I'm not going to heal them and that they should get the med pack? All of these things, right, are just what medics think about all the time. So why is it important that people understand that there are different things that people think about during the game, where medics are going to be thinking about completely different things than fraggers? Well, it's how people base their compliments. It's what people base their compliments off of, right? Maybe you think that a roamer should, on average, make the medic force 5 times a match. And let's say on your team, the roamer does it 8 times. Well, you might be inclined to give him a compliment saying, hey man, you did a really good job. You made the enemy team's medic force more than most people do, so I'm going to give you this compliment because you did really well. Because you can look at a stats page for fraggers and say, hey, your DPM was really high. Your DPM was out of the roof, or through the roof, my bad. Things like that, right? You can look at stats pages for fraggers and say, hey, you did really well. You didn't die a lot and you got a lot of kills. That's amazing. You were never in the grave at all. You could always throw out damage towards the other team. So for medics, how can people base their compliments? Well, you can't look at a stats page, right? And I'll give you 2 examples of why that is. So a medic that is playing the same can die a lot one game and not die a lot the other game, right? Because it's all based around how can the rest of your team protect you. So maybe a scout just literally runs past a couple people and shoots you and you die. Is that your fault that you died? Not really. Maybe you were positioned perfectly, but the rest of your team literally just didn't kill the scout. Whereas in a different team, that team is going to kill the scout and you don't die. You can continue healing, all these different things. So the other example is, let's say you're pushing through, like on Gully Wash, you're pushing through the other team's choke. And your team has pushed through a big door and they're already wrapping on the second point. And your team is just starting to push through the choke, right? And let's say, you take a rocket, but everybody on the other team on the other side of the choke dies. So your team's pushed through a big door and your team has pushed through choke. There should be nobody else alive, right? But let's say, your team missed a scout that was hiding by a big door that ran up, like the elbow or banana as you like to call it, and then shoots you in the back once and you drop the Uber. Is that necessarily your fault? Not really. Your team didn't check for, these possible flanks that could be happening on you, and you didn't expect to take any damage. There's no reason to Uber, and there's no reason that scout should have been behind you, right? So, your stats page may show that you had a drop, but it wasn't your fault at all. All of these things, change how people perceive different people, because a lot of people base compliments purely off of stats, and I don't think that's really possible for a medic. So now I'm going to give you an example of when you should compliment your medic that won't show on the stats at all. So let's say you're the pocket, and maybe you tell your medic, hey, use the Uber now, when it's not really a great time to. The enemy team is Ubered, and, they're running away with it, right? So what are you going to do? Well, you want to Uber later so that you can have a time where you have Uber and the other team doesn't have Uber, right? So let's say you as the medic wait 2 seconds, and then you use Uber, and then you guys push in. And then you win the fight, and then you win the round because it's the last point, right? So that could definitely happen based off of you use Uber exactly when he says to, and that's too early. You don't have enough time where you have Uber and they don't, and they basically kill you because now you can take damage. You don't have the ability to flash as many people because you're playing off a smaller Uber charge advantage than you would like, right? That's not going to show on the stats page, but it's definitely something you should take into consideration because it's something your medic did that was above average, or most medics would have just popped immediately when they really shouldn't have. And that's why I think it's really important to understand, hey, how is this guy going to think about playing his class, and why should I understand that they're going to be thinking about different things? For example, I have roamers all the time that yell at me because I'm not healing them when I have a demo and a scout here that have lower health. Now, what should the roamer do? Well, the roamer should understand that I have priorities of people that I have to heal, right? I should definitely heal the scout and the demo before I heal the roamer, assuming, they're all low health. The roamer should just walk over and take the health pack. But I continually have people that yell at me because they don't understand how medics have to play the medic role, the supporting role, and how they should support in the correct fashion. So this is like the main argument for it. People don't understand how medics play, so then they get angry when they think the medics are playing incorrectly, when they really just don't understand how to play medic correctly. So that's this part of the video. So for the second part of the video, I'm going to talk about why I think it's really important that people understand that medics train differently than fragging classes. And why is this? Well, I'm going to compare the soldier to the medic class. How can a soldier improve? Well, they can either do it based off their aim. They can do deathmatch 1v1 servers, rocket jump maps, KZ maps, or just play pugs and they can improve in their aim in the game, right? As well as, they can mentally improve at the game by maybe... Why is it looking weird? Improve mentally at the game by, playing pugs or looking at demos and internally saying, hey, maybe I should have done this in this situation. So now, what can a medic do to improve at the game? Well, they can't really play pubs, and they can't really improve their aim at the game, right? Sure, you can hit more crossbows, but it's really all about how well do you mentally understand the game. So this is either done by playing pugs and getting external reviews by your teammates, or looking at demos and internally reviewing how you could have done things differently, right? So now we're going to talk about that idea of getting compliments. So we're going to go back to this. We're going to set the bar here for average, right? Anything above, any compliment will say, hey, you're above average. Any complaint will say you're below average, right? That's what makes sense, of course, because compliments are given to people that do above average. So now, let's say your source of, like, am I doing well or not is based off of pugs. You're going to say, hey, if anybody gives me, anybody says I'm doing poorly, I'm going to look at that and try to improve. And if people say I'm doing well, I'm not going to try to improve that. It's not that you're not going to try to improve it at all, but you're not going to try to change to make anything worse, because you know you're already doing really well. So now, why is this important? Well, let's say people aren't giving you compliments, and you're currently really high. You're doing extremely well in whatever aspect it is, but nobody's giving you compliments. So you're saying, maybe, I'm slightly above average, but I could be doing something else. So you change your play style, but it actually makes you play worse. And now you're down here. You're above average, which means nobody's going to be complaining at you, but you're not doing as well as you could have been. Your skill ceiling was up here, and now it's a little bit lower because you changed your play style. And that's why I think, it's really important that people are going to give medics compliments, because people compliment other people all the time, right? You see like a triple kill in the kill feed, you're going to say, hey man, that was amazing. Now the person's going to be like, hey, maybe, next time if I lurk in the same fashion, I'll get these kills. But nobody ever says, hey medic, if you do this again, it's going to really pay off, because nobody really sees any flashy plays come out of the medic. There's nothing on the kill feed, and there's nothing on the stats pages that say, damn man, you're a really good medic, right? It's all about, how you play, and people should just be giving you compliments as you play, as they do with other classes, because that's what makes sense, right? You want to keep supplying a medic pool that's going to keep improving and keep doing the things that they're really good at, right? You don't want to not give compliments and people keep changing their play styles, and maybe, they start playing worse off. You want to keep supporting an environment where people want to keep getting better and better by giving compliments out to other people. And that's why I think it's really important to understand that a medic trains differently. They can't just improve in their aim. They have to improve by people giving feedback on how they play as well. And the way that you give feedback should be, really important. Whether you're giving a correct compliment or a correct criticism can, change almost everything. So we just learned that the medic gets a lot of feedback by playing pugs and getting, information from external as in people, and also that it's really important to understand how medics are supposed to play so that you can actually give them correct information. You're not just, saying, hey, you should have done this when they really shouldn't have, right? So now we're going to talk about how should you go about giving these compliments. Obviously, you shouldn't just say, hey, medic, you did a really good job that game. People give that to me, and I don't know what to do with that, right? What did I do that was so good? Maybe everything I did wasn't that good, and only a few things were really good, and they just made it seem like I was playing really well. So what kind of things should you do? Well, you could give out compliments. Like, people do this to me. They'll say, hey man, nice bows. So now I know that, the way I was using the crossbows, how often I was using crossbows, things like that, where it was actually really beneficial to the team. So maybe in the future, I'll do that same technique and throw crossbows to people. Another example you could give out is, let's say when you're doing a lot of pushes, the medic was, flashing only when necessary and appropriately flashing the right people. Well, you could say, hey man, your flashes were on point today. And they'll think about, what they just played. They'll think about, how many people they flashed per push. Maybe they didn't flash anybody. Things like, they'll take all this into consideration, and they'll say, maybe in the future I'll do this again, and if it keeps paying off and I keep getting compliments, obviously I'm doing something right. So that helps me improve as a player, because now I know beforehand I wasn't getting compliments, so maybe it wasn't as effective as what I was just doing where I was getting compliments. So people take all this into account, and it helps them become better players. But just remember, you have to be really specific in what you say, because people think, medics just have one job, and that's to heal people, but there's actually a lot of different aspects. Who to heal, who to, like, Uber in, how to Uber correct. There's so many different aspects, even to just Ubering itself. When people say, hey, good medic job, it's not really being specific enough. So when you are giving out this information, remember to, give specific things that like the person did really well, so they can try to keep doing that, and they won't necessarily change up their whole gameplay so that they play worse, because obviously you want them to keep playing their best. And as again, thank you for watching the video. If you watched it all the way through, I'm actually really surprised. But have a nice night.